Alright, this is just going to be a quick video explaining the best way to assemble and indeed to disassemble the flanged connection Alphorns that we have. Not sure which camera is the better one to talk to. We'll see what works out. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get all of the nuts and make sure that they are extended a little bit. The purpose for these connections, by the way, the main purpose for these connections is so that if you take your horn hiking or if you're playing outdoors in sandy or windy conditions possibly, or maybe just in a park where there's no grass and you're playing in the dirt, these connections are much more robust so they don't get dirty as easily. Or if they do get dirty, it doesn't really matter because they don't need to be kept clean. With normal Alphorn connections, it's very important that you keep them extremely clean, or else they tend to get scratched up and then they don't work anywhere near so well. These connections, if you drop them in the dirt, you can just give them a quick dust off and go ahead and assemble the horn and not worry about it. Alright, so I have now extended the nuts so they're not all the way screwed together. You're going to want to preferably have a table or the edge of a stage available. That makes this much easier, although it's not necessary. It's just more tricky to put the horn together if you have to do it on the ground. You want to put the horn on the edge of the table with the bell dangling, like so. And then you want to use the locating pin on the connection and align that to the little hole. Put the two pieces together, take one of your nuts, and just drop it into the slot. At that point, the horn will stay together all by itself. You can then take two more connections and tighten them, finger tighten them, onto the other two slots. You will then take your wrench for tightening the connections and use that to tighten the connections up. The wrench isn't strictly necessary. You can put the horn together just finger tightening everything. The wrench just makes life easier so you can actually get things relatively tight without having to worry so much. So you use your thumb to stabilize the other half of the nut while tightening the screw together with the wrench. You don't need to get things crazy tight. Just tight enough that as the horn flexes, the nuts won't come loose on you. It's no big deal if one of the nuts falls off if you're picking the horn up and moving it around, but you do want to get that nut put back on relatively quickly. So then you want to slide the horn forward a little bit, and obviously it's nicer if you're doing this outside rather than indoors. I don't actually have quite enough space, but that's okay. And same thing, there's a little locating pin. There's the little locating pin right there. And there's a little locating hole. You slide those together, and you drop the nut in the opposing side, and you let it dangle. There's no correct way around for these nuts. You can put them in either direction with the thumb screw pointing toward the mouthpiece or toward the bell. It doesn't make any difference. It's up to you. Now these horns will come with spare nuts, so if you happen to drop one, there are extras. If you end up losing too many of them and you need to replace the nuts with something, then you can go to the hardware store and just buy 1/4-20 bolts, and that will work just fine. A little harder to tighten up unless you happen to have a wrench, but you can buy wing nuts instead. And of course, if you contact us and let us know, we can send you replacement nuts and screws. Alright, so get all of those tightened up, and you will notice that as you tighten them, you can kind of adjust the angle. So if you put the horn together and you notice when you set the horn up to start playing it that it's bent at one of the connections, it's because one of the nuts needs to be tightened or loosened a little bit. Not a big deal, doesn't really matter. If the horn's a little bit skew-whiff, that's not a huge deal. It just looks a little bit funny when you stand behind the horn and look down the length of it. And it's curved. So, here is the final piece of the equation. The stand. Now you want this set up facing that direction so that the little hooks are facing toward the bell. It's just a little bit more stable that way. And if there are going to be high winds, it might just be better to go ahead and put the horn on the ground rather than trying to use the stand. And there we are. The horn is now put together. Now, if you have a music stand, and if you have a music stand attachment, you can go ahead and install that. And there we are. The horn is fully assembled. Disassembly is the reverse of assembly. There's only one thing to bear in mind while you're disassembling the horn. And that is to remove the nut that is on top last. You don't want to remove that one first, because then the two nuts on the bottom will be supporting the weight of the horn. There we are. So start by loosening the nuts on the bottom. Just give them a couple of turns and they should come right off. There we are. And then on the top, support the weight of the back of the horn while you start backing it off. Just come right off. Now be careful. Make sure that the horn's bell doesn't just drop off the edge of the table when you do this. Although the horn's pretty robust, it should be able to handle that. That's one connection. And like I said, always make sure that one nut, when you're taking it apart, if you take it apart in this order, just make sure that one of the nuts is pointing up, not down, because you don't want that nut supporting the entire weight of the instrument trying to spread it open. So, take it apart, leaving one nut facing up, like so. There we are. And then the horn goes back in the bag. And you're ready to move on to your next gig or playing site. These connections don't require any maintenance. You don't need to grease anything or keep anything lubricated. The horn itself doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance either. Perhaps after you've had it for a couple of years, you might want to consider re-oiling the inner bore, but the inner bore has been oiled very thoroughly by us when we made the horn. So that's kind of up to you. You can give us, send us an email and let us know how things are going and see what you think. All right, that's it. Have a great day.